I am very happy that I can introduce one of my dearest friends, Leslie Hawthorn. She's an ambassador for open source for half of her life. She worked for Google Summer of Code several years and is now the Director of Developer Relations at Elasticsearch. She will tell you about the human element in development. Please warmly welcome with me, Leslie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And I'm just going to, before I get started, take this opportunity to thank and acknowledge everyone for what they've contributed to making this second GOTO Berlin conference what it has been, from our stalwart organizing team to our volunteer crew, my fellow speakers, and you as audience members. Thanks to all of you for being here. So, as Diana was gracious enough to mention, I'm here today to talk about something that has been the obsession of my career in technology for the last 15 years, the human element in development. How the interplay between us as human beings, as people, either contributes to a highly successful outcome as we work together on our technical projects, or leads to great disasters. Today, we will be exploring the latter category, great disasters. So it's my hope that I can amuse you with some wonderful tales of how the use and abuse of particular tools were highly revealing about some of the difficulties within a particular company or organization's culture. So before I get into the meat of this talk, the standard disclaimers apply. These are my opinions and my opinions only, not those of my employer, past, present, and probably future. The names in this presentation have all been obscured, and some details have been changed slightly to protect the innocent and the guilty. And my last disclaimer, if you're attending this talk hoping to hear about what wiki is absolutely the best, or hearing me slam a particular configuration management engine, or anything of that nature, this is not quite the talk for you. But we're still going to have a good time. So, why is it even significant to talk about the interplay of tools and culture? Why is this a topic that's useful for all of us? And for me, my reckoning in this area has really come from spending time in the DevOps community and really understanding the methodologies behind that movement. There's been a dedicated DevOps track here at GOTO Berlin, so I won't belabor the point, but for anyone in the audience who's not familiar with the concept of DevOps, the idea is that software developers and operations professionals are working to achieve the same goal, shipping software effectively to customers, and yet if they're broken into silos and are not effectively collaborating with one another, the results are going to be that much more poor. The DevOps movement has focused a lot on different types of tools, configuration management engines, and concepts like continuous delivery and continuous integration. And yet, if you talk to folks who are practitioners of this methodology, they will be the first to tell you an oft-repeated mantra that it's not about tools, it's about culture. While tools may have made rapid deployments much easier, have taken out several layers of process for approvals, etc., it's not that the tools themselves have facilitated this process. It's a culture of trust, respect, blameless review, and collaboration that is actually what DevOps is all about. So today, as we talk about tools, we're going to talk about 5 tools and how these revealed certain things about a particular corporate culture. And I wanted to be as inclusive as possible with this presentation. So I am willing to wager 1 delicious cup of coffee to each audience member that you have been the end user of at least 4 out of 5 of these tools, And you've probably been the administrator of at least 3 of these tools. And anyone, if I have failed with that wager, please meet me out in the foyer next to the Trifork booth with the delicious coffee stand, and we'll make sure you get your cup of coffee. All right, so tool number 1, the humble mailing list. How many of you enjoyed Happy Mailman Day 7 days ago with me? Great, okay. How many folks have never used a mailman list? Okay, I just see a couple of hands. All right. So, fortunately, if you are not a deep practitioner in the ways of mailman mailing lists, this will not necessarily be something that is lost upon you. So, as we all know, the actual use of mailing lists is pretty ripe for abuse in terms of our interpersonal dialogue, but that's not actually what I'm focusing on here today. It's just the use of a mailing list, period. And any user experience designers in the audience? See a couple of nods. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the use and abuse of mailing lists to try to discuss design, which I think is the worst idea ever, and my sympathies to any of you who are currently experiencing that right now. And so we begin. And I bring to you a tale of 2 mailing lists. So there was a very large company, and they were spinning up a brand new team. And the goal of this team was to enact internal cultural change, as well as to be an externally facing body that would help people to be more included in the processes of the products that the company was building. Huge, big deal, support from all layers of management, and all new people hired and brought in to actually make this project work. This, of course, was the Fans of Chocolate project, because all names have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. So, new manager comes in, and as part of the first steps in architecting this new team and bringing all of his hires together, he creates 2 mailing lists. 1, Fans of Chocolate -team. 1, Fans of Chocolate discuss. The idea here being that the discussion list was to bring people throughout the organization in and allow them to share ideas, ask questions, get involved with some of these initiatives, provide feedback. And the Fans of Chocolate team list, you would be right in assuming that it was probably just for the manager and his direct reports. Except it wasn't. The Fans of Chocolate team mailing list was expanded beyond this manager's direct reports to include several other members of the company who this manager felt could be potentially influential in pushing the project forward, or individuals that he hoped would come and join the Fans of Chocolate team as their mission grew and expanded over time. So a bit unorthodox, but not necessarily terribly problematic. Until the inevitable happened. Team disharmony. So this manager had some difficulty with one of his employees, huge personality clash, right? Just happens to the best of us. And after some discussions between the manager and his employee, and a request by the employee for coaching and HR arbitration, the conclusion was reached that the employee had a great deal to contribute to the company and was brought in as a specialist in chocolate. So surely this person belonged potentially working for another manager, but still able to contribute to the chocolate project in the same way that the rest of the company did, through the discussion list, through proposals. People were empowered to take up projects on their own under the chocolate banner. And it seemed that with this change, the problem had been solved. Except it wasn't. As part of coming on board at this new company, the first task on your new hire checklist was to go into the company's lists in Mailman of all of the mailing lists and subscribe to whichever lists you felt would be helpful to you in doing your job, projects you'd like to get involved in, areas where you could offer your expertise. And as it happened, once this employee had left the manager of the chocolate team, he went to remove the employee, and the employee objected, saying, of course, that they were an expert in chocolate. They felt that they should remain on the team list. And clearly, it was not just for inter-team communications, because there were people who were not the manager's direct reports on the list. Fair enough. Human Resources decided that this was fair, that the employee should go ahead and stay on the list. So, in order to circumvent this problem, the manager created a brand new mailing list, FOC for Friends of Chocolate -core, because this is obviously descriptive of what this list is about and what you should use it for. There's also the huge problem of the fact that FOC-core appears alphabetically completely disconnected from Friends of Chocolate, which is the project name that the entire company is buzzing about. And this team mailing list has absolutely no description in Mailman telling you what to use it for, because the manager didn't want to call attention to the fact that he had created yet another mailing list, just for fear that this could cause some contention within the organization. So, of course, many intelligent, enthusiastic, excited newbies joined the organization, dutifully went to their new hire checklist, and said, oh, I need to go into Mailman and check out some mailing lists. Well, that's pretty cool. I'm going to do that. And reading through the description, subscribing to the lists, and of course, reaching out to the Friends of Chocolate team to ask if they could get involved or offer their expertise. And when notes were sent to this list, often the former employee of the manager in question would respond to them because he had expertise in that area and in that very particular area of chocolate making, which caused the manager in question to spend an awful lot of cycles running around behind the scenes saying, no, 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 no. He is not quite the person that you want working on this project. There's some issues there. You might want to steer clear. Just come on over to FOC-core. Just send your mail there. We'll take care of you. No problem. Oh yeah, no, I haven't had time to update Mailman with the description, but I will later. That was the party line for about 1.5 years. I don't have time now, but I will update it later. So when you have two of these things, which is not like the other, and it's very confusing, what you really have is something that reveals a big, gooey, icky, yucky mess in the side of your team that everyone can see, and you'd really prefer that they didn't. And the thing that is most striking to me about this story, I think we can all agree that there were multiple ways in which this could have gone much better, is when my friend was telling me about what he had experienced and how it was, kind of weird that we just went off and created this other mailing list to get rid of one person. I was like, well, I'm not particularly surprised given that that company is probably best known for using technical solutions to solve social problems, right? The real answer to this is figure it out. Don't fork lists. This is just totally odd. So, even a humble mailing list can betray deep cultural traits. My least favorite tool of all. How many of you enjoy filing expense reports? I see wow, I see 6 hands. Excellent. Well, we have a therapy group, and we will meet after this presentation to talk about it. So, I have to say that expense reporting tools are probably the least favorite part of my job now, and as far back as I can recall. They're just all painful, right? It turns out paying people is really hard. So, and now a tale of how expense reports can reveal deep sadness within your corporate culture. So, a dear friend of mine who worked at a multinational company in the hardware space, I actually asked a couple of friends if they had suggestions for tools that they wanted to talk about, and he immediately said expense reports, and I said, okay, tell me more. So it turns out that the CEO of his corporation got some reports back from the human resources department, and they revealed that the engineering team was spending on average about 2% of their time per month filing expense reports. And he thought this was freaking ridiculous, which it is, actually. Like, perhaps you should be writing software. So they performed some analysis, and they figured out that it wasn't that people were incurring so many expenses that it was taking up a lot of their time. The issue was that the software that they were using was so brittle and painful and misery-making that people were losing reports. They had to file them over and over again. It was just all not good. So they had an internal discussion at the highest executive levels about what they could do to reclaim this lost productivity. And the answer was, we need a new expense report system. And then they asked themselves the standard business question, do we build or do we buy? Well, I'm sure everyone in the audience already knows what the answer to this question is because this is Tales of Woe. We decided to build one ourselves because After all, a multinational company paying people in more than 40 currencies, with subject to different banking regulations, different areas of legal compliance, et cetera, is going to be in a perfect position, especially as a hardware company, to build an expense reporting system, right? Totally. The worst part of the story is apparently someone attempted to object to this plan, suggesting it perhaps lacked a little bit of sanity. And the response from the CEO was that he had just gotten a 3D printer, and he'd been reading a lot about the maker movement, and he realized that the real answer for innovation and progress was to do it yourself all the time. You just have to do it yourself, so we're going to do this ourselves. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, we all know where this is going, but I'll still try and entertain you. So everything seemed to be going quite well. Right? The project manager was brought in and put in place. Several executive leaders were assigned to check in on specific action items. Several developers were pulled off of other projects because they were known to be really excellent developers. So no doubt they could be the miracle workers who would make this expense report system built and shipped to the entire company in 6 months. 6 months. Yep. And at every status check, everything seemed to be going really well. The check-in at month 5, everything's going great. We've got all the right people in place. Check-in at month 4, everything's great. Check-in at month 3, yeah, we might slip a couple features, but we're going to be okay. Check-in at month 2, yeah, no. Everything's fine. Just a couple of features have fallen off, but we're okay. Check-in at month 1, the CEO wanted to see the product that was being built. See how far along folks were. Just get a sense for it a month before launch. And what he got was this. A big, sad mess of dreck that not only seemed to be a very poor re-implementation of the system that they already had decided that they wanted to get rid of, but that wasn't even as feature complete as the specification he had laid out at the beginning. And in order to solve this problem, of course the answer is to go and pull other professionals from your organization in to save this scary project because we've already invested so much time and so much energy and we just need to fix it. And this is where my friend comes into the story, InfoSec professional who gets pulled off to work on the expense report system because he is a miracle worker and very talented. And it is discovered that one of the primary flaws of this system is that the access control lists are not set up properly, so random employees can approve each other's expense reports. You know, time to go buy some champagne, right? So my friend worked very, very hard to make sure that these problems were somewhat solved. And within another 6 months, they were able to roll out to the organization a brittle, broken system that didn't replicate the functionality of the last bad system and caused a whole bunch of very sad, very scary nightmares. And very sadly, for the last month before the new system was rolled out, no one was permitted to submit expense reports because, of course, the new system will be here any day, which, yeah, kind of saps the morale of the InfoSec guy you got on a plane to go fly to hang out with your tiger team of developers because he's flying in every week and flying home every weekend to fix this. He just can't expense his flights. Come on, we're almost there. We're almost there. Well, so the problem was solved-ish with very predictable results. As soon as this system shipped, my friend said, "Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to do something that I have never done before. I appreciate your help, and I'm leaving to go find another job now. I thank you very much." So after listening to all of this absolute craziness, because I was still trying to understand how this happened, he just looked at me and he said, no, this makes perfect sense. And I was trying to understand in what universe any of this story makes perfect sense. And he just looked at me and said, "Oh man, we had the worst case of not invented here ever, like ever." And I'm going, this is taking not invented here to whole new levels of crazy. Whole new levels of crazy. So let's talk a little bit about why this project got so incredibly problematic so quickly. Because of the use and abuse of meetings. So, believe it or not, these folks were in 4 meetings per week. And when I say these folks, I mean their project manager, I mean all of the developers on the project, and they were requested to brief various executives throughout the organization and folks in the upper echelons of management on progress, because of course, this was a project that was very important to the CEO. So it's important that we have our finger on the pulse and we always keep up to date on what's going on. And these were in 4 different functional areas of the company. And of course, it was very important that they heard directly from the developers about their progress, so the developers were in all of these meetings. So you're already wasting 10% of your development time per week sitting, giving the same exact information to different people, so that's already bad. But sadly enough, since these folks were executive management, these meetings were calendared for a regular time each day in the morning to give the team time to work on their code in the afternoon, but unsurprisingly, executive schedules change a lot. So you may have your meeting calendared for 9 a.m., but by the time you arrive in the office, you discover that it's been pushed back to 11:30, and then at about 11:15, you find out that it's actually been pushed back to 3 p.m., and of course, you're not really going to do anything after lunch, and we can all imagine exactly how this goes. But wait, it gets better. There's more. So, about 2 weeks in to this project, apparently everyone figured out that it was going to be a gigantic disaster. Why it took them 2 weeks to find that out, not sure, but that's okay. Sometimes we have to learn. So, since it was figured out that this was going to be an unmitigated disaster, the decision was made that we just simply will not send out meeting notes. Because if we send out meeting notes, people will realize that this is on its way to miserable failure. The word will get back to the CEO that this is going to get all screwed up. He's going to get really mad at us, so we just won't send out meeting notes. It'll be fine. No one will know. It'll be great. We'll figure it out later. And in the meantime, for these 4 meetings per week, there were no meeting agendas because, of course, these were briefings with important executive-type humans, and you do whatever they would like you to do while you are in the room. So there was absolutely no structure put around these meetings. And as we all know, meetings will expand to take whatever time they're scheduled for. So most of these meetings consisted of about 5 minutes of status update, 15 minutes of shooting the breeze, and another 45 minutes of the executives suggesting new features for the system because they heard the CEO would probably maybe really like this thing. Great. Now, of course, there was no limiting to this feature creep or even recording of these newly requested features because there were no meeting notes. No one actually knew what anyone was asking for anymore. But nobody really cared because it was all just going to be a disaster anyway. So, the worst of the worst. The success metric of this project, as it was reported out to the rest of the organization, was the number of meetings they were holding about getting the system made. Woot! We have had 4 meetings a week! We have had 4 meetings a week, and we have had many, many dialogues with so-and-so and such, and just disastrous, very sad. So, as we all understand, the big reveal was quite bad, with its predictable result. So, how could we possibly have rescued these poor people? How could they possibly have not gone down this doomed road? Well, clearly, you could use a Kanban board. Seems reasonable. It's a good tool. And now I will tell you about the use and abuse of the humble Kanban board. So, a dear friend of mine, and I apologize if you ever watch this video, dear unnamed friend, because he was very traumatized retelling me this story, which he did give me permission to share. So he was hired by a firm to do information architecture and to redo their website, basically, and improve the customer journey, help people better be able to find learning resources, and of course, convert more visitors into buyers of the product. And this gentleman is absolutely no slouch, master's degree in engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, For some reason decided that he was more interested in kind of customer experience and marketing type stuff, or I guess we're calling it growth hacking these days. So he accepted this role, and one of the first tasks he was given was to separate out the product from the website, because apparently the website was built using the underlying product, and I'm not talking about like a JavaScript framework or anything, like no, these things were completely coupled together so that if you wanted to update the website because there was a typo or you needed to add a new case study or something, you had to do a push of the entire code base in order to publish it. I don't even understand how this actually works or isn't supposed to work, and when I asked a unnamed friend about it again, his eyes glazed over and he looked really traumatized and I didn't want to ask anymore. So I just didn't. Anyway, so needless to say, this is another one of those projects that is super important to the CEO, and he wants to see this website split up completed ASAP. Okay, wonderful. So my friend is busy sitting at his desk, hacking away, doing all the things he needs to do. And the CEO, super energetic, like young, enthusiastic dude, comes up and says, hey, how's it going? Checks in 4 or 5 times a day about what he's working on. Asking him about a new feature. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could make it cornflower blue. I don't know. So he decides that the way to solve the problem of being constantly distracted and constantly interrupted is to get a Kanban board. Okay, fair enough. Allows everyone in the organization to see what you're doing, completely transparent. You get the sense of accomplishment as you move tasks forward. You can offload that to-do list out of your brain. Should be great, right? No, 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 no. No, 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 it's not great. So apparently some folks were not well educated about the use of this particular system. So if they noticed that there was a bug on the website, they would just come and insert random Post-it notes onto his board wherever they thought was a good idea. Because, you know, that will totally help, right? We just don't want to bother you. We're just going to go file this bug right here under done, and that'll be great. Maybe not. The CEO would wander through. He would put up a Post-it note with new feature requests. I don't really know where he put them. We didn't get into that, probably in the done lane too. And then he would go and talk to my friend about what he was doing. And, you know, hey, I just put up a Post-it on your board. Isn't that great? This is really awesome. Yeah. No. But, you know, again, my friend was not necessarily comfortable with pushing back on this. But this project became more and more stressful and more sanity reducing over time. And he talked about how the most important thing for him was being able to move things over into that done lane, and how he had so many Post-its in done so everybody would know that he was actually accomplishing something, that they would fall off the wall, and then he'd have to replace them so that people knew he was getting things done, and it was just a disaster. So I said, so what kept you going through this? Why did you keep this up? And he said, well, I felt like I was developing a really good relationship with our CEO, and we were actually getting some like personal bonding time, right? And he's a genius. He's a really smart guy. He's maybe not the world's best manager, but, you know, super smart guy. And I was getting all this one-on-one time with him, you know, and so that was pretty cool. And I said, oh, that's great. I'm glad he was giving you this one-on-one time. And he's like, yeah, and, you know, we weren't always just talking about the website. Sometimes we were talking about software development or architecture or food or, you know, whatever. And I said, oh, that sounds cool. When did you have time to do this? He said, oh, you know, at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when the CEO would come back to the office at night because he was a night owl and I was still there. Like, that does not sound fun. And he said, no, I realized like I needed to be home, not at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I've set up a webcam so I could always look at my Kanban board from home. And everybody in the company could look at the Kanban board on the webcam if they wanted to know what we were doing. And that was really good. So I did my 1.5 hour commute home earlier in the day so that I could be up late and then get back to the office on time. So needless to say, this is problematic for a wide variety of reasons, but then I pointed out to him, like, how does this actually help your workflow? He said, well, I just had to memorize what I'd fixed and what I'd done over the night, so then I would go in and I would update my board the next day and feel like that sense of accomplishment, and that was good. And I'm like, so you had to memorize everything you did all evening from like 10 p.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning, and then go physically update your board the next day. Yeah, that's what I did. And it didn't occur to you that you weren't actually offloading any of those mental stress cycles of getting your to-do list out of your head with this process. And he gave me that look that told me, don't ask any questions and don't ask him to go to the supply cabinet because there's some Post-its in there. And we just left it there. So here was what was really going on with all those crazy Post-its and webcams and silliness. What was really going on was that my dear friend was just hoping desperately that his hard work would be acknowledged, that people would realize that he was executing furiously to accomplish this monolithic, horrific task, and that his work would be appreciated. That was really the goal that he was going for. This had nothing to do with Post-its or project management or understanding what tasks needed to be done next. It was really about creating a visible mark of achievement so that he would get the acknowledgement that he wanted from the CEO that he was doing a good job, instead of just constantly new feature requests, perhaps some harsh criticism, perhaps some inept discussions of what needed to be done next. So, my friend dutifully got this done. Very proud of him. In fact, I know this story because he was introduced to me as the only human being who could have possibly accomplished this particular task. And that's great. He got it done. That was wonderful. Very good. And then 2 weeks later, he decided that for his own personal health and well-being, it was time to create his own light at the end of the tunnel that wasn't a train and get another gig. And who can blame him? Now, the irony, of course, is that after my friend had departed from this organization, the CEO wanders through the hallway, goes to go put up another Post-it, and discovers the Kanban board is gone. And says, what happened to my Post-it sticky thing? And my friend's manager was sitting there, and he said, well, he's no longer with us. He's left, and we need to replace him, and this and that. And they had a very polite conversation about it. And the CEO became very frustrated and very upset. And he said, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe this happened. Why did this happen? He's coming up for his annual review in like 2 weeks. I came over here. I wanted to catch you at your desk so I could let you know that I wanted to personally write a note for his performance review to tell him how much I was pleased with what he had done and thanking him for all his hard work for the company and giving him an extra bonus. And I just don't understand how this could have happened. Why did this happen? Well, I think that this is because performance reviews, if done poorly, and they often are probably the most abused tool in our tool set as companies. So where's the feedback? How often in our organizations do we get only one type of feedback at a time? Either you hear all the time that you're doing a great job, great job, great job, or man, you're screwing up. This is bad. Nope, 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 nope. Mistake, mistake, mistake. But without any balance to it. So frequently folks find themselves waiting 3 or 6 or 12 months for that annual review cycle or quarterly review cycle where they can sit down with their manager and have that great talk about what's really going on with their career. And that entire time, you're waiting for failure. You're waiting to be told how you failed if all you've gotten is good feedback, because the only time you get told what mistakes you've made is during this cycle. And you never have the opportunity to improve while you're actually in the process of doing your work. Or you're hearing good things, or you're hearing bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things, and you know that every comment that's coming to you next is just going to be something that's going to make you sad, so you're kind of sitting there, hunkered down, holding out for that moment when you're going to meet up with your boss, and then they're finally going to say, you did a good job, awesome, great, here's a raise, or a nice vacation, or possibly a bottle of wine, something to let you know that you're valued. And even worse than this, it's the publicly stated practice of many incredibly large technology companies to make sure that the bottom 10% of their employees receive performance reviews that say they do not meet expectations and that they are eligible to be fired, to be let go. Now, I don't think any of us here in the audience today want to work at a company where folks are not getting things done. That's very fair. And there are times that people are just not a good match for the job that they're in. But if you're working at an organization that values hiring very, very well and hiring very, very talented people to make successful products for them, the chances that 10% of your workforce is just not doing anything correctly is actually pretty low. And that creates this very toxic environment of competitiveness and anti-collaboration between your teammates because they're all wondering who's going to be the next person to be let go. Why would you form those relationship bonds with your peers if the chances that they will be there again is so arbitrary and so slight? And it also opens things up for abuse, right? Like if you have 10 superstars on your team and one has to go, chances are the person on your team who has to go is not going to be your buddy that you go for beers with every Friday, right? Even if perhaps your buddy is not the best performer on the team. So in conclusion, just to bring it all back full circle, I want to encourage all of us as we're thinking about how we use our tools and engaging in relationships with our colleagues to remember that the most important thing that we can do is act with love, to remember our empathy, to remember it's about our culture and not our tools and our interactions and our most effective collaboration, and to approach the giving of feedback to our peers with a spirit of humility, respect, and trust. To quote Team Geek, which is a great book, I highly recommend it. So, yes, love is good. Thank you. You can meet me at the speaker thing in the foyer. And I believe we may have some time for questions, but I yield to Diana's superior knowledge of the agenda.
Yes, so as you know, you can engage with the app. And I'm just reloading my website here. No one engaged with the app, but
I'm sorry, app.
We are very, very sporty here. So if someone has a question, please raise your hand.
If you are thinking about how much you would like to enjoy a closing dessert, I completely understand, and I will be right out there for all questions needed.
I would like to say some words before that.
Oh, well, then never mind. Do what she says.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for coming, for making this conference as it is, because without you, why should we have this conference, right? So thank you very much. Please remember that you can still vote, even if you already got your recharger. And please come back next year. It will be probably at the end of November, with no colliding other conferences, hopefully. And yeah, thank you very much. You can now meet the speakers in the foyer, have some drinks, a little snacks, I think. And, well, it's over. Gee. Thank you very much. Have a good night, a good weekend, and see you next year.